Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this video I'm going to take a look at the best Highlander decks in Madness at the Darkmoon Faire. Initially I had very high hopes for Highlander decks in this expansion because right now this is the last expansion of a standard year, so the standard card pool is at its largest, and when there are lots of cards to choose from, there are lots of cards that are close to being as strong, and that means that Highlander decks don't give up that much power, and that in turn means that the Highlander synergy cards like Zephyrus the Great and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza can do as much good as they can. However, everything didn't work out as I expected in Madness at the Darkmoon Faire, because notably there are some decks that are really dependent on specific cards and they want multiple copies of those cards at any cost. Think about Paladin with the Librams. Librams are highly synergistic. You want to have as many Librams in your deck as you possibly can put in there. Or think about Evolve Shaman. Evolve Shaman is totally built around the weapon. The weapon ways to tutor the weapon, ways to get the weapon back. You want to put as many of those things into your deck as you can. And that means that Highlander decks actually haven't been quite the strongest decks, although there are some Highlander decks that are really good. But they haven't dominated the metagame, nearly to the extent that I thought they might. Furthermore, we can expect Highlander decks to go out of the meta in the near future, because the Highlander synergy cards, they are going to rotate out with the next standard expansion. We don't know when it comes out, because the last expansion came out a little bit early, so there's some doubt as to what is the current schedule. Typically it has been April, some people have now been suggesting also March, but anyway, in the next few months, Highlander decks will be going out of standard format because there won't be Zephyrus the Great anymore, there won't be Dragon Queen Alexstrasza anymore, Reno the Relicologist, Dynatherm Bran. All of these are going away from standard format. They will still of course be available in Wild. But if you want to play Highlander decks right now, when it's still possible in standard format, I have 5 decks for you here that are worth playing. Sadly, none of them are priest decks. I know that there are people playing Highlander Priest, but I just couldn't find a single version that would have the statistics to show that it's actually a viable deck, other than over very small sample sizes. And out of these 5 decks, there are 3 that are demonstrably good, that I can heartily recommend playing, and the other 2 are a little bit weaker. So, Highlander Warrior is the weakest of these 5 decks. It's a playable deck if you want to play Warrior and you somehow manage to get bored of playing either ETC or Silas or Enrage or Cthulhu. Yeah, if you somehow manage to get bored of playing all of the many viable archetypes that Warrior has to offer, then you can also play Highlander Warrior. Highlander Warrior, it's a Control Warrior shell basically, but it just wins the game by defending and then using power of Zephyrus, using power of Dragon Queen Alexstrasza to generate some threats. You can even put in some stuff like Troublemakers into the deck and it will do fine. You just play it as a Control Warrior, get some threats going in the mid to late game and win the game. Another deck that you can also play as Highlander, although the regular variants are stronger, is Rogue. You can play Highlander Rogue because Rogue has so many fun cards that, hey, if you can't decide what fun rogue cards would I like to play, just play them all. Shadow Jeweler Hanar, Zephyrus the Great, Edwin Van Cleef, Jandis, Flick. Just put them all in the same deck and just roll with it. This is currently the best performing Highlander rogue list out there. It's basically a World Kickmaster, this sort of combo-ish rogue deck, just as a Highlander variant. So you can expect this to perform slightly worse than the regular variant, but it's still an above 50% win rate deck. This is still a deck that you can play to Legend if you enjoy this kind of playstyle. And with this deck you will have a lot more variety in your games because of the variety in the cards. Then coming to decks that are Highlander decks but that are not weaker than regular variants, we have Highlander Mage. This is the same Highlander Mage deck that I have featured in a couple of videos. There's a guide video of this deck on this channel as well, and it was a fun deck to play. I did enjoy it. Uses Yogg-Saron, uses Cthulhu the Shattered, uses Highlander cards. There's so many fun, big power cards in this deck that it's a joy to play. It's a little different than the Highlander Mages of old. Most notably, it doesn't really have that mid to late game pressure. It's just removal and defenses, and then those old cards at the end that are going to swing the game for you, instead of just steady pressure. So even though it's a Highlander Mage, it doesn't really work the way Highlander Mage decks have usually worked, but it's an okay deck anyway. The newest deck on this list is this one, Highlander Paladin. Yes, Highlander Paladin actually seems to be kind of a thing right now. Brune Paladin, Pure Paladin, they're both okay, but you can also play Paladin as a Highlander variant. And in this deck, actually, Sir Finley of the Sands has even been a very effective card. If your deck has no duplicates, discover an upgraded hero power. Sir Finley has generally been the weakest of the Highlander synergy cards, hasn't seen a lot of play, but goes in nicely into this one. Just some solid on-curve Paladin gameplay. One threat, another threat, more threats. Just really fun looking mid-range deck. However, if the most important thing for you is performance, then the best Highlander deck right now to play is still Highlander Hunter. Highlander Hunter hasn't changed much during Madness at the Darkmoon Faire. Sure, some secret synergies were added early in this expansion, Inconspicuous Riders, Petting Zoos. Ringling's Rifle has really made an impression on Hunter. It has become a staple in many sorts of Hunter decks. It's being used even in face Hunter decks nowadays. So that has been a strong addition to the Hunter's arsenal. But other than that, the deck remains mostly the same. Dino Tamer Brand was nerfed from this 7 mana cost up to 8 mana cost, so that weakened the deck a little bit. And that knocked Highlander Hunter off the podium, so it's not among the top 3 best decks anymore. But it's still a perfectly playable deck, and if you like the style, you still have some time to play with it in Standard. Unless we get new Highlander cards in the next expansion, then Highlander decks will be gone from Standard in a few months. But if you're still looking to play with them a little bit before they go, these decks are some excellent choices that you can use. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.